We're here today with drummer Stephen Hodges. He is 1/3 of the band MSSV. They've got a new album out. It's called On, and they're coming to St. Paul, the Turf Club, April 18th. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm okay.
It's an honor speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, I'm honored to speak with you. Absolutely, yes.
Well, I know MSSV is back here with the new album, On and On. Can you tell the listeners a bit about it?
Well, let's see. We do things kind of in reverse, where we tour on the new material because it changes so much over the span of whether it's a month or 6 weeks, whatever, usually it's at least a month. This one's actually about 6 weeks. But the material changes so much because everybody's pitching in ideas and what have you that we'd be kind of hemmed in if we tried to make the record prior to the tour like a lot of bands do. So we make the record after the tour, and then the next tour we support that record. So that's what we're doing now with On, and then we're working on a handful of new songs that we'll make once we hit May 3rd. That's our last gig in LA. Then we'll go in the studio the 4th and the 5th and make the next record.
Excellent. Yeah, I like what I've heard here. I saw the video for On and On with, like, I guess a paper doll sort of animation. It was very cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure I've seen all of them, but they're pretty funny. There's one because of Watt with his nautical, port, starboard, port, all the different things, calls the van the boat. And so somebody made one of with all this nautical stuff. I forget which song, but yeah, crack up.
Well, it was interesting reading about how you guys recorded the album. Basically, like, you did all the parts separately, and then you kind of mixed them all together at the end. Is that how it worked?
Not exactly. The songs are recorded like regular songs all together, but there were improv bits that we did once we had all the songs put together, once we'd recorded the songs, that then Baguetta took home and spliced some stuff together. Okay. That were some in-between bits. And there's one song called On Your Face or something like that I hadn't ever heard before. And I was like, is that me? But it was. And it was something that he had kind of spliced together from some different bits that we had done. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised. There's the songs, but then there's this whole sort of improv bit that he kind of collaged together. So that's the separate bits that we're talking about. But the songs are recorded like regular songs, all three of us together.
Well, can you talk a bit about playing with Mike Watt? That has to be a drummer's dream to have a bass player like Mike to lock in with.
Right. Yeah, well, Mike is just, he's, for some people of a certain age who didn't grow up with the Beatles, let's say, like I did, he might as well be Paul McCartney. It's that intense of a love for Mike and the Minutemen and what he has done and accomplished. And, it's really interesting because he has a lot of opinions and a lot of insight that don't go along with just standard type of drums and bass. A lot of music where the drums and the bass kind of mirror each other. You work together and kind of hit beats together. But the Minutemen were always known for kind of get out of my space, get in your own space, and and that sort of held. So we work with a lot more counterpoint and stuff. But so he'll play in one part of the bar, and then I'll play in another part of the bar with the bass drum or what have you. So it's interesting type of orchestration that you don't find in your everyday kind of accompaniment. And and I look over there and I'm this kind of a historical figure as well as a really powerful musician and he has such a command over the way he speaks and does his singing or his spiels, as he calls it. He's really a strong figure in that regard. I think there's a poetry. I don't know whose poetry it is, but they called him to be part of it. And a couple of the other people that were being involved, I'm sure there's others, but it was Tom Waits and Beck. So, it's no secret that he's really good at presenting himself verbally, vocally.
Sure.
He's got a real command over presenting in a really cool, powerful way. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've played with some incredible people over your career and on some of my favorite albums as well. And you mentioned Tom Waits, and I know it is Swordfish Trombones is one of my favorites. Can you talk a bit about your memories of that time? I mean, that was quite the run you had there with him.
Yeah. If I hadn't switched over and started playing blues with this guy, James Harmon, I probably would have never met Tom and Kathleen. We ended up having two great guitarists, Kid Ramos and the late Hollywood Fats, in the band. It was a really powerful band. And we would play bars like 6 nights a week. But James was very savvy and very in with helping, with the Blasters, kind of grew up with those guys. So we would go up to L.A. and open for the Blasters or open for X or the Plimsolls or Oingo Boingo. I don't know. There's just a shit ton of people that we would open for. And so that's where Tom and Kathleen found out about me, apparently. I would see them once in a while at gigs. And then out of the blue, they gave a call. They called the office, and then the office referred them to me. And it was my first success in music was in middle school, where I was the timpanist. So I'm nothing against just guys who play in bands, but I kind of came up through the school system. So I've been in the symphony. I've played with the big band, with the charts. I've played Library of Congress scores, accompanied dance for 20 some odd years. So I was used to listening to the cadence of people singing out the counts to dance moves and what have you. Sure. And that was kind of what Tom did with, is working to explain things. He would bring around this cassette player and play some, Cuban stuff or some African stuff. But then he'd also kind of sing it out and dance it out and throw an elbow up and, grunt something. It's just, you kind of pick up cues from several different sources. So it turned out that we had a shorthand, as he used to call it. Yeah. So, we went in, and Swordfish was the first one. Then we did Rain Dogs, Swordfish was in L.A., Rain Dogs was in New York City. Mule Variations was up near where they live now, in near Petaluma. And that record, Hold On, off of that record, got a Grammy. So that was cool. And, his music is much different than this. It's this moves around, has, really, really, dramatic dynamic shifts and what have you. And Tom is a bit more like playing in a blues band, where you get a mood going, and then you work your way through that. You feel your way through that. And so it isn't as much 8 bars of this, then back to this other thing, do 16 bars of that, then do 28 bars of this other thing, then go back to the first thing, and what have you. There's lots of moving parts in
Sure.
MSSV material. And Tom sort of puts it into gear and lets it flow. Yeah. Everybody, there's all kinds of music. This is almost more like classical music of a sort, but it's got, we're always listening to John Coltrane. Everybody's loves Elvin Jones on the drums. Mike Baguetta lived in New York for 15 years, playing jazz and studying. So that's why he calls it post-genre, because it's such a mix of many, many things,
Sure.
And apparently he was very influenced by this record where I first met Watt was in 97 when we made this record called Contemplating the Engine Room, which was Watt's first punk rock opera. And that was the trio with Nels Cline, myself, and Mike Watt, yeah. So there's just a whole lot of nuts and bolts thrown into the mix with this music that Baguetta creates.
Well, and you guys are on tour now, and looking at your schedule, you're playing like 60 nights in a row or something like that. I mean, you guys aren't messing around here.
Not quite 60, but it's close. I think it's 53 or 52, something like that. We ran into a dust storm, so we were to play 2 nights in this one venue. So we missed the first night because we weren't allowed on the highway until much later. There were a lot of trucks and people that got caught in it and had some pileups. So we dodged a bullet there, and then we did 2 gigs, one early one and one later one. So we still got everybody covered. It was just all in one day instead of 2 separate days. But yeah, this is apparently the way that Watt has always done it. I think the Minutemen did it like this. You play every night and then you go home, and we stay in people's homes mostly. We were in a hotel last night, which is very, very rare. And, it's kind of fun. It's a sense of community. People share with us, and we share with them. And also it kind of keeps us all together. So Watt is usually on the computer pretty early in the morning, and in about an hour and a half out, he starts saying, 108 minutes, 75 minutes, till we're due in the van. I think that's part of how we just are able to just plow through this. It seems impossible, but it's not. We've done it several times, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart, for sure. And most people, would be, especially singers. But since Baguetta started singing, the volume of the band, the dynamics got even more extreme. So we don't have him hollering over loud music. That's part of where we use the dynamics a lot, is to get out of the way. Just like B.B. King, when he would sing, he'd turn off his guitar and just hold it to his chest, and you could hear a pin drop. That's classic old school accompaniment. That's not rock and roll. It's just be quiet when the singer sings, and then play loud when he doesn't. I mean, that's sort of like that working the dynamics thing of people kind of lean forward when you're quiet, and then when you hit them with some volume, it's exciting, and then you bring it back down again, and they lean forward again. And I'm not sure that Nirvana would have been as popular if Butch Vig hadn't gotten them to quiet down significantly when Kurt would sing, because then the raging was so much more apparent when they would get to the chorus. Sure. It was like somebody passed out acid on the playground and everybody went crazy, So, yeah, it's a tool, it's a thing. Not everybody utilizes it, but it's there if you want it,
MSSV is coming to our area here, April 18th. You guys are playing at the Turf Club in St. Paul, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of places we're not going, believe it or not. It's kind of due to availability of venues, and then routing as well. We try to keep the hell rides down to a minimum because that does kind of wear on you. So there are places that we usually go that are just not happening this time around. You know, a lot of places where we have family, we're not playing there this time. And that's because of routing and availability. And it's just a miracle that any of this gets booked. It's like herding cats trying to get club owners and booking agents, you know, to some are responsive and some aren't. And it's takes the patience of a saint for Baguetta to book this stuff. So it's amazing that it gets booked at all, as far as, you know, my way of seeing the thing. But yeah, you know, we still end up playing a lot of places.
Awesome, man. It's been great speaking with you, Stephen. On and On is great, and I'm glad you guys are making your way here to St. Paul. And again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. And I'll look for you at the show.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, Dustin. You're welcome. Thank you.
Again, that was Stephen Hodges of MSSV. Their new album, On and On, is out now, and they're coming to the Turf Club in St. Paul on April 18th.